My name is Norma Prime. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the person my family calls when something breaks, whether it's a leaking pipe, a credit card bill, or a nervous breakdown. I manage budgets for a mid-sized construction firm, so fixing things feels natural. Numbers make sense. People don't. I pack my lunch every night, iron my blouses on Sundays, and drink coffee from a machine I bought secondhand because I couldn't justify a new one. I'm steady, predictable, the one who knows where the insurance papers are. My younger brother, Tyler, is 27. He's the family's golden child, handsome, hilarious, and allergic to consequences. Online, he sells an image, morning routines, travel vlogs, skincare hauls. Offline, he's chaos in designer sneakers. Growing up, Tyler could spill juice on the couch, and Mom would rush to clean it before Dad noticed. If I asked for help with homework, she'd sigh, "Norma, you're older. You can handle it." It started small, the invisible distribution of attention. When I turned 10, I got a used journal and a reminder to save for what matters. When Tyler turned 10, he got a drone and a post on Mom's Facebook. He deserves the world. When I brought home straight A's, Dad said, "Good, that's your job." When Tyler brought home a participation ribbon, Dad clapped, "You're our star." At family dinners, Mom would say, "Tyler's so creative," while passing him extra potatoes, then glance at me and ask, "You're still single?" The words still carried more weight than the potatoes ever could. But somehow I kept showing up, because belonging, especially to your own family, is an instinct you never quite unlearn. The real trouble began with Tyler's engagement. He'd been dating Lena Carter, a lifestyle influencer with perfect teeth and pastel aesthetics. They met on a brand collaboration trip and got engaged 6 months later at a rented vineyard. Mom nearly fainted from excitement. "A destination wedding," she gasped, as though it were her dream coming true. Dad started looking at Tuscany venues before Tyler even asked for help. And me? I sat at the end of the table, quietly calculating what this would mean. Flights, hotels, dresses, family contributions. At first, they said it would be simple, an intimate gathering, backyard ceremony, twinkle lights. But by the following week, there were spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, and endless group chats. Suddenly, I wasn't just the maid of honor. I was the financier. Tyler called one afternoon while I was at work. "Sis, can you cover the deposit for the photographer? I'll Venmo you later." I said sure, even though later in our family never came. Then came another text. "Hair and makeup need their travel fees early, just until next Friday." Then another. "The venue holds the date only with a wire transfer." I told myself it was fine, that I was doing something loving. When I added it up one night, $44,000, it didn't feel real. It felt like fiction. I stared at the number in my Excel sheet, the total glaring back like a bad decision in fluorescent light. But Mom said, "Honey, you're helping build a memory." Dad added, "Don't be petty about money." And Tyler said, "You're amazing, Norma. Seriously, you're keeping the dream alive." So I nodded, even though something in me was starting to crack. A week before we were supposed to fly, Mom gathered us around the dining table. It smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee, her favorite combination before any family meeting. She had a binder, color-coded tabs for flowers, travel, music. Tyler sat next to her, flipping through Instagram filters for wedding content ideas. Dad read the news on his tablet, pretending to listen. "Okay," Mom said, tapping the travel tab. "Everyone's flights are handled. Italians are flexible, so we must be precise." She pointed at me. "Norma, your flight is in the email. No checked luggage. Just carry on." I frowned. "Wait, you booked mine too?" "Of course," she said. "It's group booking. Don't complicate things." Tyler smirked. "It's a surprise route, Norma. You'll love it." "A surprise route?" I repeated. "Trust me," he said, like he always does when he's hiding something. I opened my email right there. The subject line read, "Italy." The PDF attachment said, NAA, Naples International Airport. I looked up. "This says Naples. Isn't the wedding in Florence?" Tyler laughed. "Relax, Professor. We're routing people through Naples for better content. It's prettier for vlogs." "Naples is 5 hours away," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Why do you always have to make things sound complicated?" Mom clicked her tongue. "Stop being negative, Norma. It's all arranged." Dad didn't even look up. "You always think too small. Let your brother handle it." I stared at them, my family, the same faces I'd defended and funded, and felt like I was standing outside a window, looking in. Tyler leaned forward, voice dripping with charm. Come on, sis. Don't ruin the vibe. The word vibe lodged itself in my throat like a splinter. I wanted to argue, to demand real answers, but Mom reached over and touched my hand lightly. Just go with it, sweetheart. That touch, that tone, that familiar choreography that said, don't rock the boat, Norma. So I smiled the way useful people do when they're tired. Okay, I said softly, if you're sure. Tyler grinned, victorious. You'll thank me later. I rinsed my coffee mug, pretending my hands weren't shaking. Mom kissed my cheek like she was sealing a contract. Good girl. And that was it. My ticket was booked. My role secured. The reliable one. The ATM. The sister who says yes. I didn't know then that the city code on that boarding pass, NAP, would stand for more than Naples. It would stand for every time I'd let someone else write my story while I footed the bill. I didn't know then that love, when used like a leash, feels exactly like trust, until you realize you're the only one being led. The morning after that family meeting, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my laptop screen. The spreadsheet glowed with numbers that looked almost innocent, rows of payments, each labeled neatly. Photographer deposit, $2,900. Venue wire, $18,000. Band booking, $6,200. Dress tailoring emergency, $1,800. Each one at the time had felt justifiable, temporary, manageable. But together, they spelled something else entirely. Sacrifice disguised as generosity. The total cell read $44,000, bolded in black. I pressed enter again, like maybe it would change if I recalculated. It didn't. I took a slow sip of coffee, the bitter kind that tastes like hard work. It's fine, I whispered to myself. It's family. That word had always been my weakest excuse. Mom called later that day, her tone sweet as syrup. Hi, honey. Just confirming you sent the transfer for the chair upgrade? I blinked. The what? Oh, Tyler didn't tell you? The white one squeaked on video. Awful sound for filming. We went with the gold set. Only $1,100 difference. She said it like difference was a feather, not a stone. Mom, I already sent... She cut in. You're such a blessing, Norma. I told your brother he's lucky to have you. There it was again. The compliment shaped like a leash. I hung up without arguing. I'd already learned that logic doesn't work on people who benefit from your silence. That night I tried calling Tyler. He answered from somewhere loud. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Hey, sis. Everything okay? Tyler, Mom just said, oh yeah, the chairs. Don't worry, we'll make it right after the honeymoon. He laughed, muffled the phone, then added, love you. You're the best. Click. I stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen. The best. The reliable one. The walking wallet with a smile. The days blurred after that. Emails, invoices, polite, just checking texts from vendors who knew my name better than the bride's. I started packing early, folding clothes in quiet resentment. I told myself the exhaustion was worth it, that once I got to Florence, maybe I'd finally belong in the family photos instead of behind the camera. Then one evening, while scrolling through group chat updates, I saw Lena post, can't wait for the magic to begin Tuscany. Here we come. Tuscany, not Naples. My stomach dropped. I typed, wait, Florence, right? I'm routed through Naples. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then came Tyler's reply. Trust me, sis, it's a vibe. We'll bus everyone together. Followed by a winking emoji. I reread the message until my eyes blurred. Naples was 5 hours from Florence. Who buses guests 5 hours for a wedding? Something didn't add up, but I told myself not to overthink. Don't ruin the vibe, right? The week before the flight, Mom came by with her binder again, flipping pages like a wedding general, reviewing her troops. You're checked in, right? She asked. Yeah, though I still don't understand why. Because group rates save money, Norma. Why do you question everything? I almost laughed. Me? The one footing the bills? Questioning things was apparently my crime. She softened her tone. You've always been so independent. Maybe try trusting others for once. I wanted to say, I trusted you with my savings. Instead, I nodded. You're right, Mom. When she left, she hugged me tight and said, this trip will bring us closer. The irony almost made me choke. The The night before departure, I opened my drawer to grab my passport and froze. It wasn't in its usual spot. The folder was slightly moved, half an inch maybe, but I noticed. I always notice. For a moment, I stood there, heart pounding, telling myself it was nothing. But there'd been other small things too. My iPad, open to a tab I hadn't used. A sticky note by Mom's coffee mug with a half-torn code written on it. The Florence Hotel link that required a specific URL only they seemed to have. I pushed it all aside. Suspicion felt like betrayal, and I'd been taught never to betray my family. The next morning, Tyler texted a final reminder. "See you in Italy, sis. Don't be late like last time." I stared at the message for a full minute before replying with a thumbs-up emoji. It was easier than words. Dad dropped me at the airport. He hugged me, one-armed, distracted, like I was luggage he'd carried long enough. "Don't make things complicated, Norma," he said. I forced a smile. Wouldn't dream of it. As I boarded, the gate agent scanned my pass. "Naples?" she said brightly. "Yeah," I replied. "Naples." During the flight, I watched the clouds pass like pages in a story I no longer recognized. I should have felt excitement. Instead, there was a quiet dread sitting beside me, like an uninvited guest. When the plane touched down, the pilot said, "Welcome to Naples." I turned on my phone. Messages flooded in. Instagram tags, story posts, champagne toasts. Tyler and Lena, smiling under Tuscan arches, surrounded by friends. My chest went cold. I scrolled, searching for my name. There was none. Just a caption under one photo. "Everyone we love, together in Florence." My thumb trembled over the keyboard as I typed, "Hey, where's the bus? I'm in Naples." No reply. 30 minutes passed, an hour. Then finally, a single text from Tyler. "LOL, I just didn't want you to ruin the vibe." The air left my lungs like I'd been punched. Before I could even process it, another notification popped up. "Mom, stop faking confusion. It's your fault. You make everything heavy." I stared at those words until the letters blurred. Heavy. That's what I was to them. Not helpful, not generous. Heavy. A weight they gladly used until it became inconvenient. I sat down in the terminal, surrounded by strangers. Somewhere, a child laughed. A woman argued with her husband. The world kept spinning, perfectly indifferent. Then, slowly, I smiled. Not out of joy, but because the truth, when it finally lands, is strangely freeing. They had tricked me, lied to me, excluded me. And yet, for the first time, I wasn't confused about my place. I was done being the family's fire extinguisher. That night, I booked a cheap hotel room near the station. Clean sheets, no view, just quiet. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling. For years, I thought belonging meant saying yes. But maybe, just maybe, it begins with saying no. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd send them something they'd never forget. Morning light seeped through the thin hotel curtains, painting the room pale gold. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The quiet, the smell of old linen, the hollow ache behind my ribs, it all felt suspended between disbelief and numbness. Then I saw my phone on the nightstand. Notifications blinked like tiny, cruel reminders. Tyler's wedding photos. Lena's captions. A dream come true with everyone who matters. Everyone who matters. I exhaled slowly and opened my messages. Nothing from Mom, nothing from Dad, no apology, no explanation, just the echo of that text. "LOL, I just didn't want you to ruin the vibe." The words looped in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. I'd spent $44,000 for the privilege of being left behind. By noon, I was sitting in a tiny cafe across from Naples Central Station, stirring sugar into a cup of espresso I couldn't taste. The air was thick with the smell of oil and bread, the noise of strangers living normal lives. I scrolled again through the family group chat. It was buzzing with photos. Tyler's tux, Lena's satin robe, Mom's proud caption. "Our angel deserves the world." Dad commented with a heart emoji. I wasn't tagged in a single one. For a split second, I wondered if they were ashamed, or if they even noticed I was missing. My phone buzzed. A new message from Mom. "You make things harder than they need to be. Don't come. You'll ruin it." Just like that. No explanation, no remorse, just a command to stay invisible. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because pain sometimes arrives dressed as clarity. A child at the next table pointed at the pigeons outside. His mother smiled. The world went on as if nothing catastrophic had happened. I typed back one sentence. Thanks for the clarity. Have a good day. Then, before I could change my mind, I blocked them all. For the first time in my life, silence was mine to choose. That evening, I walked along the narrow streets near my hotel, past shop windows glowing with soft yellow light. I could have flown straight home, but something in me wanted to linger, like standing in the aftermath of a storm, needing to see the wreckage before rebuilding. I passed a bridal shop. The mannequins in lace stared blankly from behind glass. I caught my reflection among them, plain, exhausted, but alive. And suddenly, I felt it, the tiniest flicker of relief. If love is supposed to make you feel safe, then what I'd been doing all these years wasn't love. It was servitude wrapped in guilt. The next morning, I checked out early. At the train station, I bought a cheap ticket to Rome, then a low-cost flight home. No ceremony, no confrontation, just motion. As the train sped through fields and tunnels, I thought of all the ways I'd tried to earn their affection. Birthday gifts I couldn't afford, bills I covered, the way Mom called me our responsible one, like it was a compliment, not a curse. They'd taken my reliability and built their comfort on it. Somewhere between Naples and Rome, I realized I didn't owe them another dime, or another explanation. When I landed back in the States, the house felt unnaturally quiet. I left my suitcase by the door, walked straight to the shower, and stood under the water until the steam erased everything that still clung to me. Florence, the texts, their laughter. Afterward, I brewed coffee and opened my laptop. If they could plan an entire wedding without me, I could plan a different kind of ceremony, the end of their entitlement. I created a new email address, boundaries@primeliving.com. Then I opened a blank document titled 90 Days. Under it, I typed, "This isn't revenge, this is closure." I spent the next 2 hours printing receipts, screenshots, payment confirmations, every Venmo transfer, every invoice, every "I'll pay you back later." One by one, I listed them on a clean page. Wedding venue deposit, $18,000. Catering down payment, $9,500. Photographer retainer, $2,900. Band booking, $6,200. Dress tailoring, $1,800. Hair and makeup. Travel fee, $620. Chair upgrade, $1,900. Miscellaneous expenses, $3,000. Total $44,000. At the bottom I wrote, repayable over 18 months, 0 interest if on time, 8% APR if late, automatic payment link provided. Then, for my own peace, I printed one final message. For the record, you didn't uninvite me, you freed me. The next morning, I called a courier service. Do you handle large deliveries? I asked. How large? The man replied. 4 feet tall, I said. And wide? Wide enough to make a point. He laughed nervously. Address? I gave him Tyler's. The following day, at precisely 8:12 a.m., a photo arrived in my inbox. The courier, standing beside Tyler's front porch, holding a 4-foot foam board, listing every dollar I'd spent on his wedding. Taped to the back was a sealed envelope labeled Repayment Agreement. On the board's bottom corner, I'd printed a QR code linking directly to the payment portal. My wedding gift. It didn't take long. By 8:30, my phone lit up with calls. Mom, Dad, unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Mom, Norma, what have you done? You're humiliating your brother. Dad, unforgivable. Take it back. Tyler, you're insane. You've ruined everything. Me, I'm not taking it back. I'm taking responsibility. Then came Lena. I didn't know. We'll pay. Please just stop. Me, the plan is in the envelope. And finally, a voicemail. Tyler, voice cracking. Okay, I'll sign. Just don't send anything else, please. Minutes later, the DocuSign came through, signed by Tyler Nelson and Lena Carter. At noon, the first payment pinged into my account, $2,440. No apology, no phone call, just numbers, steady and silent. It was poetic, really. Numbers were how they used me. Numbers would now set me free. For the first time in years, I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. Peace didn't come from forgiveness. It came from the receipt. By the end of that week, my inbox had turned into a battlefield. Subject lines like, Norma, please reconsider, and you've gone too far popped up between work memos and delivery receipts. Mom wrote essays disguised as apologies. Dad sent single-sentence commands. Tyler alternated between fury and shame. I didn't reply, not once. Instead, every morning I logged into the payment portal, watched the balance shrink by a few $100s, and let the quiet satisfaction replace the years of guilt I'd been fed. For once, my peace came with direct deposit. 2 days after the first payment, a package arrived at my door. No return address, just a cardboard box taped in a panic. Inside was the 4-foot foam board, snapped clean down the middle. A note was taped to it in Tyler's handwriting. You made your point. Stop embarrassing us. I stood in my hallway, holding the broken halves like a body that couldn't be resurrected. Then I started laughing. Quiet, disbelieving laughter that turned into something steadier. Because even in destruction, it was proof. They'd seen it. They couldn't ignore me anymore. I set the halves against the wall and whispered, "That's fine. I have digital copies." That night, I drafted a new document, the Prime Family Boundaries Agreement. It wasn't legal, but it felt sacred. At the top, I wrote, "What I will no longer do. Pay family phone plans. Cover temporary loans. Attach my name to credit cards, rentals, or deposits. Respond to guilt in the shape of love. What I will do. Attend emergency hospital visits. Accept respectful communication only via email. Meet twice a month for dinner, in public. Protect my peace at all costs." I printed it, signed my name at the bottom, and sealed it in a manila folder. Then I drove to my parents' house, parked by the curb, and left it at their front door. No note, no explanation. They'd learned to read between the lines. By Monday, Mom called again. I let it ring. Then came the text. "This family is falling apart because of you." I replied with the only words that felt right. "No, it's finally coming together, just without the lies." She didn't answer. A week later, Lena reached out privately. We met at a small cafe near downtown, neutral ground. She looked exhausted, mascara smudged, fingers fidgeting with her wedding band. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "About the flights, about what they did. I thought you were invited." I nodded. "I believe you." "I told Tyler to make it right," she added. "He's humiliated." "Good," I said, not unkindly. "Humility's overdue." She winced, then smiled faintly. "He's learning, slowly. He's even started budgeting." That almost made me laugh. Miracles happen. Before she left, Lena reached across the table. "For what it's worth, you taught him something none of us could." "Boundaries?" I asked. She shook her head. "Accountability." When she walked away, I realized I didn't hate her. Not anymore. She'd been swept into the same current that had drowned me for years. Maybe we'd both learned how to swim the hard way. By the end of the month, the repayments continued on schedule. Each ping in my inbox was like an echo of power returning home. But money wasn't the real reward. It was silence. Uninterrupted, guilt-free silence. I slept better. My apartment felt lighter. Even coffee tasted different. Sometimes in the evenings, I'd glance at the broken foam board propped in the corner of my living room. It looked almost like art, a monument to a lesson learned the expensive way. One Sunday afternoon, Dad showed up unannounced. I found him standing awkwardly by my door, holding a bag of oranges. He hadn't come empty-handed since I was a child. "Your mom made me come," he said, eyes lowered. "She thinks maybe we overstepped." I didn't invite him in, but I didn't close the door either. "I'm not here to fight," he added. "I just want you to know we're proud, even if we didn't act like it." It was such a foreign sentence coming from him that it barely registered. He handed me the oranges like a peace offering. "They're sweet," he said. "Your favorite." "Thank you," I replied. "Boundaries still stand." He nodded. "Fair enough." As he walked back to his car, I noticed how small his shoulders looked. For a fleeting moment, I felt something close to forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. That night, I transferred $300 from my paycheck into a new savings folder labeled Italy for me. Because if I was ever going back, it would be on my own terms, not as someone else's support beam. At the next scheduled public family dinner, Mom and Dad showed up 15 minutes early. We sat at a small table near the window of an Italian restaurant. We talked about the weather, about Dad's blood pressure, about how work was going. No one mentioned the wedding, or money, or Naples. When the check arrived, Mom hesitated for a second before sliding her card onto the tray. I said nothing. Just smiled softly, grateful for the small miracle. Progress doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's just a quiet meal that ends without guilt. Back home, I stood by my window, city lights flickering like distant stars. For years, I thought strength meant endurance. Now I knew it meant exit. I opened my journal and wrote the final line of this chapter. Boundaries aren't revenge, they're instructions for love. Then I closed it, turned off my phone, and let the quiet hold me. It's been 6 months since the wedding that never was. For me, at least. Sometimes I still wake up expecting my phone to buzz with family drama, a new emergency, a new demand disguised as affection. But instead, I wake to sunlight spilling through my curtains and the sound of nothing at all. Silence. The rarest luxury I've ever bought, and it only cost $44,000 and a lesson I'll never forget. Tyler and Lena's payments arrive on the first of every month, like clockwork. I don't celebrate them anymore. I don't even check the portal every day like I used to. It's just routine, quiet accountability in motion. It's funny. Numbers were always what they used to control me. Now they're what keep me free. Mom still sends emails sometimes, long, dramatic ones with subject lines like, "Can't we start over?" or "Family should be forever." I reply once a month, short, calm, unwavering. I love you. Email only. Boundaries stay. The first few times she ignored that rule and called anyway. I didn't pick up. After a while, the calls stopped. That's when I knew she finally believed me. My boyfriend Evan says he's never seen me so peaceful. We met at a construction budgeting conference. Glamorous, I know. He jokes that I'm the only woman who can make spreadsheets sound poetic. When I told him about everything that happened, I expected him to pity me. Instead, he said, "You didn't lose a family, Norma. You stopped auditioning for one." That sentence landed somewhere deep. I realized I'd spent my whole life performing, being the dependable sister, the financial safety net, the emotional shock absorber. But when I stopped performing, the world didn't collapse. It just got quieter. And quieter feels a lot like peace. One afternoon, I ran into Lena at a bookstore. She looked different, simpler clothes, no camera in sight. She smiled nervously. "You probably don't want to talk to me." "I wouldn't say that," I replied. We ended up grabbing coffee. She told me she'd left social media for a while. "Too much noise," she said. "Tyler's learning to live offline too. He's trying." I nodded. Trying counts. Before she left, she placed an envelope on the table. "The last payment," she said softly. When I opened it later, the check was for $6,220, the final balance. But inside, she'd also slipped a handwritten note. "Thank you for holding us accountable. We didn't deserve your kindness, but maybe now we can learn from it." For the first time, I didn't feel anger reading her words, just closure. I didn't cash the check right away. Instead, I drove to the beach that evening, the same one Tyler and I used to visit as kids when life felt simple. I stood by the water, the wind tangling my hair, and thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the silence, the growth. Then I smiled and whispered, "I made it out." The waves didn't answer, but they didn't need to. I deposited the check the next day, not as revenge, just as release. 2 weeks later, Mom invited me to Sunday dinner. "No pressure," her email said. "Just food and maybe some honesty." Against my instincts, I went. The house looked the same. Framed photos, lemon cleaner smell, Dad's newspaper folded neatly on the table. But the energy was different, softer, careful. Mom hugged me at the door. "You look happy," she said. "I am," I replied. "It's strange, isn't it?" She laughed, a small, cracked sound. "It's good. You deserve that." Dinner was quiet. No one mentioned money. No one asked for anything. Halfway through the meal, Dad said, "You know, your brother's been saving up. Says he wants to pay you back double one day." I smiled. "He doesn't have to. He already did." They looked confused, but I didn't explain. Some lessons aren't meant to be retold. They're meant to be lived. That night, back home, I poured a glass of wine and opened my journal. On the first page, I had once written, "I fix things." Now, on the last, I wrote, "Not everything broken needs fixing, especially people who choose to stay broken." I closed the book and set it beside my laptop. Tomorrow I'd start planning a trip, not to Naples or Florence, but somewhere new. Maybe Greece, maybe Iceland. somewhere quiet where I didn't have to translate love into responsibility. A week later, I got a postcard in the mail. No return address, just a photograph of Florence. The arches, the lights, the same villa from the photos I was never in. On the back, written in Tyler's messy handwriting, "We're sorry. Wish you'd been there. Hope you know that now." For once, I didn't cry. I just smiled, folded the postcard neatly, and slipped it into my folder labeled "Proof that I was right to leave." They say boundaries are boring. They are. No fireworks, no shouting matches, no dramatic tears, just calm, predictability, space. But that's their power. Boring is peaceful. And peace, I've learned, is the most exciting thing you can own. I turned off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence settle again. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the useful one, or the fixer, or the family safety net. I felt like myself, and that was enough.